G, Matteo and everybody at VICENZAORO for the fantastic hospitality. Thank you very much. My name is Edward Johnson. I work for Gemfields. I'm the moderator for this first session for the day. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while. Some of the topics sometimes that Gemfields tackles might be a little bit controversial or difficult for people to understand. Today, what we wanted to start talking about is about people and relationships and how those feed into running a responsible business. I've worked in the industry for quite a while, and one of the things that I've always felt strongly as an industry, when we are talking about the need for businesses to act responsibly. Yesterday, we were talking about ESG, environmental, social, and governance. Many people talk about it being a company's responsibility to act according to strong ESG. One thing we know about the jewelry business is it's multi-generational. We have people on the panel who represent sometimes up to the 7th generation of businesses here in Italy. In my opinion, the jewelry business is one of the most responsible businesses in the world. How else would it survive through the passage of such a long time, passing from one family to the other, with customers continually trusting members of that family, members of that business, to do business with them? So I would argue that the jewelry business and the members of my panel are responsible by definition because they've been in the industry for a long time and over many generations. But that's the conversation that we wanted to have today, is about the succession from one generation to the next and how we look after the heritage of the industry. And I wanted to explore it with the panel today in terms of 3 topics. The past, what is important from the past that we carry on and pass to the next generation. The present, what is working now and is important. And the future, the changing needs of the modern consumer. So that's how I want to discuss it, past, present, and future. I am so privileged to be joined by a wonderful panel, coincidentally Italians. So thank you all very much to start with for indulging me and enabling us to have this conversation in English. I appreciate and I apologize that I do not speak Italian. And I thank you for your understanding of that. So I think our panel needs very little introduction, but needless, I will introduce Azzura Cesari, from a very established long-term Italian gemstone manufacturing and trading business, Cesari and Renaldi. Also Alessia Crivelli, 2nd generation of Crivelli, a very established manufacturer exhibiting in Hall 7. Please visit if you have time. I'll skip to the lady on my right, Vanni, from Italpreziosi, a very important and recognized precious metal refiner here. And in the middle, a young gentleman from Sicily who you may not know. He is today representing the 7th generation of his family business in Sicily. And we welcome Gaetano Cavalieri. Thank you for joining us. In the sense of the words that we first use, this succession and heritage, I want to focus on those 2 words to start, and maybe Alessia, we could start with you.
First.
Yes, because you have such an interesting question about this, and an idea, as we talked before, about what for you, as a 2nd generation of a business handed down from your family from your father to you, what is the connection between these 2 words, the succession and the heritage, from your experience?
In my opinion, are the same. The connection is, they are the same thing. They are the 2 different parts of the same stories. Because the 1st generation is the beginning. And in the 1st generation, you can find all the value And the second generation the second generation has the responsibility to take this value and bring them to the future. So I'm so sorry, I have a terrible English. I will try to do my best to explain myself.
I mean, that's perfect. And, you know, it's that importance of the responsibility of carrying on the lineage. That's what's important. That's what's been important for you, learning from your father. You have children.
4.
4 children. Hopefully, one of them or more of them will take on. What do you think, from what you were taught, is going to be important for you to teach to your children if they come into your business?
I think I want to let them the choice to come into my business. So in this way, they can have a big passion, because our business is a very passionate business. So they want to do this. It's a choice. And I think that with a very important motivation, they will try their way to take our business into another future, because new generation are very, very strong, are very, very amazing, and they just find someone can trust them, because they are the future. And I think also to my kids. In this moment, I think that no one won't come to my business, but everything can happen. So maybe my baby is very, 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 very young. She is 7, so maybe. But the bigger, in this moment, no, unfortunately no. But I think that they can have the choice. This is one of the key of a good succession.
That's very important, isn't it? You know, they have to have the choice to join, because they need to have the same passion that your father had and that you had, because they need to continue that on. Thank you. That's a lovely way to start. Thank you. Thinking about those 2 words. Azzura, if we turn to you, you know, focusing on colored stones, we have to think about all of the needs and the expertise that's needed to deliver a product from your business and your father's business. You know, we think about the product development. We think about understanding the needs of the customer. And also, of course, managing the production volumes and getting things on time and the way the customer wanted. These are all skills, and there's a lot of sensitivity and experience needed. So from your experience taking over and moving into the business from your father, what has been your experience in balancing that expectation from the previous generation to managing what you feel you need to do as an individual business person?
I think, starting from thank you for inviting me here. Really appreciate it. So thank you, Gaetano, for this opportunity. I think that everything starts from humility. When you approach a rule in terms of second generation, because you are surrounded by people who have more than 30 years of experience. So you have to demonstrate the respect and at the same time that you are able to handle your heritage and bring it up to the future. So it's a matter of balance between empathy, education, and at the same time patience, because it takes time. About myself, it's about almost 15 years that I joined the company, and I'm still learning from people that are in the same company. So it's all based on respect. And as always, my father remembers me, people are more important than the product. Because when you value the people that are with you and fighting for the same battles, then of course you can get the best result and at the end satisfied the best customer requirements.
It's interesting that you talk about people are important.
Yes.
You know, For me, and I'm not a multi-generation, I came into this business on my own, but you know, you've learned from your parents how important relationships are, how important it is that you treat people with respect. You talked about empathy, all right? Can you expand on that a little bit about, you know, I often help people who are coming into the industry and what do they need to learn? And I always say it's about relationships and people. And how was that for you growing up? Was that taught to you from a very early age?
I think that what is important to underline is that the gemstone business, and of course I believe that, Edward, you are on the same page on that, is based on the trust. So that's the reason why people are so important, because we have to handle materials that start from important values. So the trust between your collaborator, your suppliers is fundamental, because everything starts from there. And so the respect of the material and the people itself comes together. So I started at young age playing with stones, so my experience was a pleasant one, like a child going to the company, going to the factory, and people let me touch and experience that. So it has been, you know, a journey. But at the same time, I found myself lucky about it, because my father and his business partner, Antonio Baietti, gave me the opportunity to find and build up a certain space. So make some tests, and at the same time trying new ways to approach the project, and at the end offer different kind of services to customers that are completely changed in almost 10 years.
Lovely. I mean, we'll talk about the future,
yes,
maybe when we come back to that section. And Alessia, if I can turn to you, you know, again, a second generation, an extremely inspirational and, can I say, charismatic mother that you have. Everybody knows her, very strong personality. How does Italpreziosi ensure the sustainability of your business with the transfer from her and now to you taking over?
Thank you, Edward. Nice question, and thank you for having me here today. First of all, I would like to say that I've been extremely lucky, because usually the succession is about also a changing of vision. And I have to admit that the vision of my mother has always been very ambitious and very focused on sustainability since the beginning. And she has been quite a disruptor on this, because back in 2008, she wanted to create a supply chain that could be making like the business sustainable, which means that going to the community, going upstream, when no one was interested at the time about it. She was knocking at the door of brands saying, we have to help small communities. And in 2008, despite everyone laughing at her back, she created a chain of custody certified project in Honduras, where there was sustainable mining in 2008. And now I'm very happy to see that this is the usual discussion, especially in these conferences. So I have to admit that the baseline has been very high and ambitious, and we are keeping up with that. And as Alessia was mentioning before, like, you know, I didn't start my work experience at Italpreziosi. I started in international relations. I was working for a think tank and a period at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And my focus was human rights, climate change, and commodities. And it has been very helpful when I entered in the company, because, let's say, I upgraded the quality of the compliance and the sustainability in a more like formal and very like intelligence-wise focus. So it's always about giving an added value. Of course, people are all different. My mom has been a great entrepreneur. She has been always at the forefront. She has been investing in projects that now are usual, but at the time were very interesting and not easy to think about it. So I think the right aspect is that each individual has its own expertise and can give the right added value to that role. But the main point is to following on the vision. And in our case, it will always be about being as ambitious as we can, but as concrete as we can, because we are not about talk, we are about concrete actions. And that's what we are doing. And we are doing it through a big focus on culture and engagement, especially in the supply chain, with the community, and especially with training and formation, making education available for everyone in the supply chain, everywhere in the world. And this has been a great focus that we're going through.
Thank you. And we'll touch more on the vision that you're taking on in a minute. But Gaetano, if we can come to you now, obviously, we hear you speak sometimes, and you're often representing CIBJO in all of the work that you do. And thank you for that from all of us, for all of your dedication. But can I ask you, for the purpose of this, to think about your family business instead of CIBJO? I know they're intertwined, but you know, founded in 1821, you're the 7th generation, the 8th generation is with us. Hopefully the 9th generation is preparing for school tomorrow, I hope. What do you think, when we talk in the industry about responsible business activities, what are the most important things that your father taught you that enables you to run your business responsibly today?
Well, my father used to be a person with a very strong character, as well my mother was. And by the way, the majority of the people in the company, of the people working with us, they were women, the majority. Because my father was thinking, because we are in this business, which is mainly focused on women serving the clients, which are mostly women, or the recipients of what has been sold or bought are women, then we have to consider that the female presence in a company is important. I'm not saying that because gender equality, but because they used to think like this. By the way, the elements that were driving my father in, I would say, more than teaching me, allowing me to be next to him, and they were saying, you be seated and look. If you are able to steal with your eyes what we are doing, then you will understand. Then I will give you some direction. But the main direction was, and still is, let's say, in the succession and heritage, handing over, which I did and I continue doing to my son, is transparency and honesty. My father used to tell me, you can do whatever you want at a number of conditions. Number one, that you are capable to make money and bring added value to the company. Number two, that you are aware of what you are doing. Number three, that you are aware that if you are doing mistakes, you are making mistakes, responsibility is yours, and you have to be ready to pay for your responsibility. There is an episode that I remember coming to my mind. It was a very long time, I don't think, to that. Came to our office a young lady saying, I am going to open a jewelry shop, and I have chosen your company to be the supplier. I said, okay, why? Because my grandmother, she said, my grandmother told me that I have had relation with your father and your family is a reliable family. So that's why I'm here. My father used to help everybody, obviously with a very high sense of business, very high sense. My mother was very helpful under this point of view, but again, the sense of responsibility, of honesty and transparency, he was never ever take advantage of anyone. And I may remember that he showed me mathematically that getting a limited markup, and I'm talking about the 60s, I'm not talking about yesterday, putting at the time a limited markup and getting every single item sold many times with a little markup in a month period of time, so within 30 days, we're bringing the company an incredible profit, even though the single profit was very limited. And that was also driving me in that way. But certainly, everything was based on human relation, on what is today known as know your more the counterpart, your client, and have, and again, I'm referring to 60s, having a relation through which the business in reality was partnering with each one of them, in both sides, both with those who were supplying and with both who were the client of the company. I think, I hope, let's say, I like to think that those principles has been passed on to my son, and apparently is, but certainly when we talk about succession, as my father did with me and as his father did with him, let's say the children in this case, that has to take over, has to prove that they are capable. Because with all the due respect with the younger generation, not everybody is capable to follow the heritage.
And I'm sure that you all found that to prove yourselves capable to your father or your parents was more difficult for anybody else in the business. I mean, Alessia, you've talked to me about your father, who's still involved in the business, you know, and I love this talk about the transparency and the honesty, and you were nodding with that as if, yeah, you really related to that.
Well, in her case, the lucky thing is that apart the father, she has a mother, you know, and who is behind the scene, fortunately, because the father, you know, it's, what can I say? You know, he's a terrible guy, just to be...
I know the humor, Gaetano, it's okay, we understand. So, Alessia, tell me about your parents and how that was with the transparency and honesty when you were coming into the business and showing them that you could do it.
Yeah, you know, my father is a genius. Is my father, so I love him over all the other thing because he is my father. But he's also a genius. He created a wonderful and amazing brand. He believed, he is the first one believing in our history. He started without nothing, from nothing, just with a vision. So for me, just this is incredible. So it's a very important and enormous responsibility for me because I'm alone. I have no brother, no sister, so it's just me. And I used to think about my company like my big sister. So it's a part of my life, it's a part of my DNA. So it's for this that I'm sure that if one of my kids will come to my factory, to my company, and decide to live with my big sister, he or she has to want it, because I have the same approach, and I have the same situation when I arrive in my factory with my father. I've grown up inside my factory, so I have a lot of memory inside. And when I arrived, he told me, you stay over there, look and steal.
Which is what Gaetano said as well.
And that's it. This doesn't work with new generation. They don't want to stay in a corner and just sing and just steal something. They want to be a part of something because they want to be in the situation. They want to try, if they have the capacity, they want to text themselves. And that's amazing because they want to have the opportunity to say something. And I think that communication is is another key, very important in this section, because communication between the first and second generation sometimes is missed, and is a very big problem, because we are not enemies. We are in the same history. We are the same history. That's very important to keep in mind.
Yeah. You know, the importance of this conversation, from my perspective, when I was thinking about this, is with the rise of the internet, which we've all experienced over the past 20 years, and then the rise of online selling, all right? We've all experienced it. We've seen it. People who have no heritage in this industry, and they sell things, sometimes providing information which, in my opinion, is not true. It's inaccurate, okay? And it damages our industry in the long term. So this getting back to these long-term businesses that have to have learned by watching from an early age and learning and absorbing the relationships, the trust, everything we talked about. And you know, you talked about how your mother always showed she cared about the communities where you source your materials from. Now, of course, you're taking the business into the next generation with your commitment to B Corp certification. And I was so interested to hear your presentation yesterday. I sat in. My Italian is terrible, so I'm so sorry I couldn't understand. But I'm looking forward to listening to the translation, which VICENZAORO off to do. But tell me a little bit about the transition for you to take Italpreziosi into B Corp, and how has it been integrated into the business?
So B Corp has been a great starting point because, you know, sometimes when companies arrive to certification, they say, okay, done, we got there. No, for us it's a starting point because B Corp, for those who doesn't know it, is a global movement where more than 8,000 companies all around the globe, with more than 160 sectors, I think, they are working together to make sure that there could be a common benefit for everyone, for people and the planet. And B Corp certification, I think, is also a great innovation because in comparison to other certification in the industry, there are more B2B, like businesses knows about them, like RJC, LBMA. B Corp is a certification that customers know, final customers, they can find it everywhere, in supermarkets, in brands. And this is an added value that they choose to buy because they know if a company is B Corp and the product is B Corp, then they know that there has been an assessment. They know that that company is actually committed to the common benefit of planet and people. And we started this journey 3 years ago, and it hasn't been easy because it's cross-sectoral, so it's not focused on mining or agriculture, whatever. It's cross-sectoral, so it's not easy, but it's a great tool because the big impact assessment is a free tool that company can use to measure their impact, and based on their impact, they can access to that certification. So I just take the moment to say for those listening, especially thinking that CSRD has now came into force, we all need to start measure our impacts, and we have tools that are free that can help us. So B Corp is a first step for businesses to set up their strategy, but also measuring their impact. We are a benefit corporation, in Italy, Società Benefit, and by law you need to measure your impact, and this tool is great, and certifying has been a a starting point because you start and you keep on growing with the points. You have to progressively improve. It's not about being perfect, and it's not even being like getting perfect. It's about adding always an added value in your strategy to make sure that you can improve if it is about nature, environment, people, community. But B Corp, it's something that is a movement. I like these things. It's not an association. There are great associations in the industry, CIBJO, Watch and Do Initiative, RGC, they all put together stakeholders to work in the industry on standards. This is something different. This is a movement. I like this because it gives you the idea of not something that is stuck, no? It's moving. So it's about creating a platform where people, businesses can achieve the common goal. And that's exactly what, and I'm happy that I could bring this to the company last year for the 40th anniversary. It was a nice gift. Yeah. But I was happy because this has been basically what my mother has been dreaming so far, which is creating common benefit, not just making profit, but creating added value for everyone with dignity and ethics and transparency.
And a lot of that, you know, we've talked about, you know, how the consumer is changing and requiring these sorts of certifications. You've been RJC COP, Code of Practice certified, and Chain of Custody, COC, for many, many years. So, you know, just talk to us a little bit about how does the B Corp fit into your RJC commitments?
Well, of course, we're talking about two different standards. RJC is focused on our industry and certify, especially with chain of custody, the segregation of the process. B Corp do not certify chain of custody. B Corp certify that you have a governance, you have a structure in your business that allow to have all of the principle of sustainability considered within it. So it's a great starting point for those who doesn't have actually right now a sustainability strategy to fit with it. And so I would say that it's an added value to the RJC. It's something that put up, let's say, with the value, your final product, and gives you accountability, because it's all about accountability. Again, CSRD, you will have to have your report audited. You cannot just write nice stuff. You have to have practical metrics, impacts measurement. You have to demonstrate what you say is not just a nice story, but it's actually having positive. So it's about, B Corp, I can say, gives you accountability. It's all about transparency, and it's a great tool to improve. It gives you idea on while you do this assessment, you're already taking notes to say, oh, I didn't know you could do that. I could start to do that. So it's a learning process, but it's about giving an assurance also to the final customer. So for those here, I hope you can start the B impact assessment. It's very useful.
You've done a great job on selling it to people. And for those of you listening to these acronyms, if you haven't heard them before, CSRD is the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. Please, if you're involved in the jewelry industry, look it up, along with CSDDD, the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive. They're coming into force in the EU, and they will affect many companies along the supply chain. And that's what we're talking about, is the ability to report, because times are changing. You know, the industry is changing, the needs of modern society are changing, and manufacturing is changing, especially in colored stones. And, you know, we talked earlier, Azzura, where, you know, there's an industrial revolution going on in gemstone manufacturing and cutting and polishing. And you know, you've faced many challenges coming in to look at how the business should adopt and adapt to these things. So can you talk a little bit about some of those challenges with modern technology impacting the colored stone business?
Absolutely. Exactly what you said, Edward, we are experiencing an industrial revolution in colored stones. So in almost 10 years, the system is changing very fast, and the technological requirement by the most representative companies within the system are increasing in terms of technical requirement. So about tolerance, about shaping, about sizing, so very, very strict. And because of that, the biggest improvement we built up is about technology. But at that time, when we started, almost 10 years ago, we decided to invest in developing technology that are, even nowadays, not available on the market. So we decided to develop it internally and test it, because in terms of company, we work with all colored stones. So as far as everybody knows, we have different harnesses, different qualities. So each technology has to be tested and improved. And it's a process. So it takes time, but at the end, I think the most challenging part has been balancing the traditional cutting technique that is still nowadays fundamental, because hands are fundamental in our system, but balancing and integrating the two processes has been the most challenging part, but at the end the most effective. And this is what gave the best result, but because it has been applied for production, so jewelry production, and even for high jewelry and one-of-a-kind pieces. So I think the other part that has to be underlined is about how you ask, and at the same time how you communicate, going back to what Alessia said, to your people, to convince them and be enthusiastic about how they can bring their own experience to new system in order to improve that. So it's not a matter of changing system, but it's a matter of integration. So it's a technical process, but at the end it's a cultural process, in which we have to consider all these elements to get the best result. And at the end is also your people that during the process find solutions among them. And if you reward them, it's always an increasing value process. So that this is something in which I truly believe and which I had the opportunity to experience within my company. So the journey is still long, so we have a lot of things to do, but at the end, I think that is part of a certain intangible value that is on what you believe in terms of vision and in terms of, at the end, results.
And you talked, essentially, what I'm hearing there is about keeping that heritage of Italian colored stones.
Right.
If we move forward now as well, you know, you're very much, well, you're all engaged in made in Italy, that concept that adds value to the material. So if we think now for the last little section, and please, if anybody has any questions, we'll come to you after this area where we'll talk about the future. How are we going to take it into the next generation, maybe beyond you? Do you think that the whole concept of made in Italy is relevant even today and in the future for the modern consumer?
I believe so, even in stones manufacturing, because Made in Italy, that is a hot theme at the moment, is not just about manufacturing, but is also about how is the approach on the product, and on the end with the creative, because creative people with Italian perspective, with Italian attitude, usually find more support in terms of creative values. So how this balance has been managed make a huge difference. Nowadays, we think about Italians, we still think about Italians as creative people, but creativity can also be applied to technology and can also be applied to searching new materials. So it's more than one element that has been to be combined together. Nowadays, for example, in terms of technical development, we're able to provide a tolerance size in terms plus minus 0.03 millimeters in terms of tolerance size. That is massive, but at the same time has to be combined with knowledge in terms of sourcing and getting the best quality, and reputation on the market. That means stabilize the supply chain and having certain relation able to provide a certain supply in terms of raw material, able to guarantee a continuity. So it's a matter of multiple key factors in order to get it. And I believe it's part of Made in Italy values that nowadays companies still appreciate and continue to require in terms of product and approach.
Alessia, on the jewelry manufacturing side as well, you know, thinking about the Made in Italy, and what is it that you're really doing as a business and thinking about to respond to the needs of the modern consumer, the new consumer, and how important is it as a jewelry manufacturer to think about that?
Made in Italy is, I think, is the most important value we have in our manufacturing, because inside the Made in Italy there is our history. Not just mine, our completely history. And I think that this is a very critical moment because, for example, me, I'm in the middle of the past and future, because I'm not so young, so I'm not the new generation. I'm in the middle. I'm still thinking about the next one after me. So when I think about this, I'm trying to understand how I want give to the new generation, how I want that they can know about our world works. And I work a lot with education. For me is a gift, because I can stay a lot with new generation. I can listen them, I can understand them, I can try to find if they want to take our business in the future, and they are very interesting on it. This is important because we can see also. Now I try to explain in the better way I can, so please help me if I'm not find the word. I think that in this moment is also important work on education, because is a very important moment. The world is changing very, very quickly. Young generation changes very quickly, and they are able to adapt in the changing. They are able to find solution that we are not able to see. So sometimes the communication is missing, I told you before, and I think that we have the responsibility to give them the roof, to give them the heritage, to give them the skills and all the tools we can, and give them the freedom to elaborate our heritage and help me, farlo per se stessi, cioè renderlo.
They need to approach it as doing it for themselves.
For themselves,
right.
yeah, that's it. And we have a lot of academies, a lot of school, a lot of different way to learn our job. But for succession, for example, I think that we have already put attention on how approach the succession. In my opinion, it's time to think about why we have to do this and why we want to do this. Because if you have a very strong why, you will find a way.
Briefly, what do you think is the why we need to really work on success?
Because we want, because we love, because we have a big passion. We make the beauty, we make the history. Because if you think about one piece, one ring, inside this ring, you can have everything. You have a human creativity, you have a human sensation, history, because this is mine. Maybe tomorrow could be I can give to my daughter, and she can give to her daughter. So how many years of history and emotion inside a creation?
That's beautiful. Thank you.
This is the key, in my opinion, because we have to think about sustainability, we have to think about responsibility, we have to think about all of this. But in my opinion, the first is the passion we have. And I think that we can do a lot for new generation, as they can do for us.
Nicely put. Lovely. You talked about the education. You know, Alessia, a lot of what you've been doing over this weekend is educating us about B Corp. You know, educating why it's important for you as a business, and that's similar to what everybody's been talking about, is educating the consumer about the value that jewelry businesses and gold refining brings to society. How do you look to that with, none of us have a crystal ball, all right? We don't know where the modern consumer will go, but we can look at our children and the younger generation and see, and where do you see your business going when you're passing on to your children?
That's something I never thought about. Well, education is crucial. Without culture, you don't go anywhere, because, you know, it's not just about educating a generation, it's about educating for the mindset, for the right mindset. It's about creating a community where there's an understanding of where you want to go, where you are, and what are your ambitions. I would say, more than discussing about my future generation, I want to make sure that I leave a place and an environment, let's say, of the company where there's a great and solid basis. There are already solid bases, but I think you can keep constructing a solid basis with education. Even with B Corp, ESG, we do a lot of education within the company itself. Azzura mentioned many times a team. A company is a place full of people that are crucial in every single operation and department of the company, and educating. Forming each of the individuals is crucial to make sure that there is an understanding of the vision of where we want to go. And that for itself is, I think, one of the most important part. And we do invest a lot on that, and we will keep on investing on that. But if I can add, educating, it's something that needs to go beyond the company. It's something that needs to go also in the whole community, the supply chain, the competitor, the association. And the reason why you mentioned we were there talking about B Corp, I was inviting people, even competitors, to start this. But because if I really want to make sure that the future generation is actually thriving, I have to make sure that there will be resources for them to do their job. There will be an economic and, you know, market context that will allow you that. And to do so, we are focusing in educating, especially in the supply chain. And to do so, you need to be creative. There is not a unique solution. When I started with the compliance in the company, we saw that the Know Your Customer process that was mentioning also Gaetano is a crucial moment, because you get to know who you have in front of you. What are also the risks, but also the gaps that they have, but also the opportunities that they can achieve. So we created a new concept that we went everywhere last year in many conferences to share, which is transforming the Know Your Customer from KYC to EYC, an empowerment of your counterpart. You can get that moment as a boring moment where you get documents and see risk assessment, management of the risk, everything. You can transform it also in a moment of formation. So to enable that, because you have many customers, you have many suppliers, you cannot go and have one-to-one for everyone. But in 2019, we created a website called Chain of Information, which you can all find online. And it's put together all of the open source resources about responsible sourcing, sustainable development goals, reporting, and gender equality, climate, nature, why this is important, what impact has in our industry, to make sure that what was useful for us was available for everyone, making sure that even especially small and medium companies, could have access to material that were easy, interactive videos. We didn't create anything. It was already available online, but not everyone has the resources to go and look for them. So we created this website, and it is very positive because, and we presented it at the OECD Mineral Forum, annual forum. It's something that can spread the knowledge. We cannot give for granted that everyone knows what is the OECD guidelines all around the world. You have to make sure that they have access not just to the 100-page papier, but they have access also to easy guidelines. And so, to recap, and a small spoiler, we are doing also a project that will be released in the next months, where we also focus on individuals, because even at these events, we discuss about ASM, artisanal scale mining, and it's not just communities, it's also individuals all around the world, and usually these are the ones that are not included in any of these educational hubs. So we are creating something that could be accessible also for individuals to make sure that culture will really be inclusive for everyone. So to recap, to answer your question, I want to make sure that we can live not just the company environment as a great foundation, prepared for all the ambitious plans for the future, but making sure that our company can give an added value in the industry now, for competitors, for association, for everyone, to make sure that when they will work in a better industry. And a better industry, we can achieve it just if each of us work actively in making it inclusive. So.
And making your business and the industry more sustainable for the next generation going forward. Not in terms of environmentally sustainable, but financially sustainable. There's a business model that's there. And maybe, Gaetano, can I come to you at the end, and then we'll have some time for some questions. Again, with your hat of your family business on, what do you think modern business in the industry needs to do to make them more sustainable for the next generation? By that, I mean financially sustainable.
Well, a part of the things that has been listed here, which today are important. I mean, we saw yesterday the presentation, the session we had on ESGs. I mean, Ellen is in the room. John, I don't know if he's in the room. Wesley left. Raluca, I think, is in the room. But you know that the elements are again in these three letters. Environment, which doesn't mean only the atmospheric environment, but the environment where you live. Social, because you have to have relation with the people, so human relation again, and governance, the way you manage your company, or the management is managing the company. On top of that, reputation, transparency, and honesty. That's it. And obviously, we all rely to the young generations. And as the heads of CIBJO, we are doing a lot for the young generation in terms of giving tools to let them use those tools to improve their business or to start their business, to make their business, let's say, in line with what the business today, and preparing them today for their future, not only the future of the industry, to go forward. So we are there, and for sure those are the simple principles that apparently looks to be complicated, but are not so complicated.
Yeah, it's back to that relationship, the trust, the honesty, then transparency. And maybe, I know it's coming up to 11 o'clock, but we started late, so we can finish a little bit late maybe. Let me turn a question to you. How many of you here today are family members of a multi-generation business? Lift your hands if you are. So, and I would believe that many of you would be Italian, many of you might be European. So you don't have to ask a question, but you've already put your hand up, so maybe you'd like to. Does what we were talking to resonate with you and your family and your business? Have you had different experiences? Yes, sir.
First of all, thank you very much for an excellent panel. I'm the third generation of VD Global. My name's Bhavya, and I can resonate with almost everything you've said. And I had one question. Thank you, Azzura, Alessia, Gaetano, and Alessia, and Edward. Excellent moderation. But what are the system and processes you've set in your family businesses regarding communication with, the generations above you, second generation or first generation? Because like Alessia mentioned, we're not enemies. We're part of the same side, but there are different mentalities. Like Alessia mentioned, Watch and Jewellery Initiative, CIBJO, RJC. We're part of all of it, but there are certain costs involved that maybe everyone doesn't agree with. How do I? It happens because I say we want to do this, but how do I make sure everyone in the team agrees with it and they're passionate about it? How do I convince the HR manager that we need to prioritize hiring more women? How do I convince the rough procurement team that we need to start focusing on ASM mining? How do I convince the CFO, who's not a family member, but a trusted colleague since the first generation, that we need to start spending money to be part of initiatives such as RJC and Watch and Jewellery Initiative and follow the guidelines of CIBJO? It's all happening, but how do we make sure we're all on the same page as a group? So I'm really curious about the systems and processes on how it works in your family and your firms, because it's not just family, but you have trusted colleagues for generations. And when you step in, you don't want any conflicts. You want to be friendly with them and you want to be on the same team. But naturally, when there's a new member in the family that steps in, there's always going to be some form of conflicts, because now there's a different decision maker in the group. But thank you very much. A very excellent panel. I resonated the most with this panel.
Thank you. I mean, it's such a great question.
Yeah.
Because from my perspective, the communication takes place in the boardroom and around the dinner table.
Yeah.
It never stops, right? So how would you respond to the question? Anybody want to take it?
Okay. I think that this question pictures in a practical way exactly all the issues we have to handle. Of course, when we talk about all the values we have to provide in terms of product and in terms of organization. So going further to try to answer to your question, I think that practically, first of all, start from your belief. Because if you start placing this question to yourself, it means that you're believing in the value of, the certification you're trying to get for your whole organization. So this is fundamental, because again, going back to what Alice told us, it's a movement. It's not static. So what CIBJO does is truly a movement, because it's changing the system step by step, little by little, but is giving us instrument to change the whole system. It's a process. It's going to take time and effort, but at the end, it's going to have a huge impact. So I believe that placing the right information to the people you're working with, based on their own role, because at the end of this circle, there's certain expenses, but it's going to be a final reward, even in terms of economical reward, because your customers are going to appreciate that. Maybe not all at the same time, but at the end, you're going to see results. So it's an effort that is going to, let's say, pay the price, right?
Yeah. Just concretely, you always have to understand who you have in front and speak their language. If someone is talking about financial numbers, you can tell him about environment it will take time to make him understand about human rights and nature. You need to speak numbers, okay? So speak the language all you have in front. Then with the time you educate and change the mindset. But if you want to disrupt and create change, speak the language. Bring numbers demonstrating that businesses can have an added value economically. Out there, it's full of researches, and you can find them. But remember who you have in front. Rome was not built in one day. Don't give up. And that's my suggestion.
Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Nice, thank you. Listen, we're 5 minutes overdue and there is a lot of events going on this morning. We'll be back, or CIBJO will be back shortly to talk about precious metals and values. I really encourage you to stay for that. I've been talking with the moderator and there's some really, really important conversations taking place. Thank you very much for your time. I'm sorry we didn't have so much time for questions, but I know our panelists would be happy if you wanted to talk once we've finished offline, as they say. Grazie mille. Thank you very much indeed. I really enjoyed talking to you and learning more about your businesses and your heritage and your succession. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gaetano.